Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special Friday night Metal Black podcast. We'll be covering a game that many of us played ages ago, with just three of us here on this special session. Myself, Golem, and Adrian. This is going to be a little different than our normal podcast with only three people here. I think it'll probably resemble more a discussion group. I'm not going to be as assertive and authoritative as a host as I usually am. Instead, we're just going to be going through an outline and probably each contributing some to it. Let's get started. Adrian, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I just finished up my midterms. You all know that I had a 40% grade curve, so whatever worry I had for my Calc 2 test is good now because nobody did good.
Yeah, that's I guess the balm and the origin of the 40% grade curve. Is it sufficient to say that Calc 2 is what you've been playing recently?
Pretty much. That and Super Mario Land 2, since we've already gone ahead and started the October game.
Okay, well, we probably don't want to get too much into Super Mario Land 2 here, since we'll be talking about that again shortly. Golem, how about you? I know you spent, what was it, over 150 hours on Metal Black?
Let's say over 27.
Okay. What else have you had time to squeeze in there?
I started Skyward Sword again.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you were complaining about something like chatty Cathy's or something.
Yeah, I've always felt like people who complain about Fee are pretty... I've never liked that kind of person, but
They're
now
not seeing the forest for the trees.
As it were, yes. But I will admit, she is a bit of a nitpick. Like, just let me play the friggin' game. And, it's not an original complaint to say that the beginning of a Zelda game is too talky. But aside from that, I still really like the gameplay, and the first boss is still weirdly hard.
I can't remember the first boss off the top of my head.
That's Girahim?
That's right.
I feel like this is the second. Yeah, okay. I do remember playing that in GameStop once. Fairly challenging first boss.
Girahim's a classic. He's what makes Skyward Sword so good.
Yeah. I think the main thing that tripped me up was one of his attacks is that you have to fake him out so that he thinks your sword will strike from one place and then you strike from another. And, that requires a pretty nuanced use of the controller so that, you have to quickly switch where your sword is coming from, but you have to do that without
swinging the sword.
Slow enough so that you don't activate Link doing a sword strike. It's
Right.
weird.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The demos for the game, they let you play 3 parts, and one of them was just let you immediately into the boss fight, and that's how I know about that fight, and I know what you're talking about.
It's a good fight.
Yeah.
So what kind of motion controls would you like to see applied to Metal Black in the future?
Motion controls. Ideally, it would be like in Sonic and the Secret Rings, you hold the controller flat, so the buttons are facing up,
Right.
and then you tilt it left and right to tilt Sonic in a certain direction. And I think that would work pretty well for Metal Black.
Well, aren't you describing a basic variation on how Bit Trip Beat works?
Yeah, oh wait, well I guess that is, there you go.
I was about to say.
That means it's a good idea.
And it's still waiting to happen since Nintendo does not know that Metal Black or the Wii Remote exists.
Hey, wait, hey, did you hear for Back to the Future Day, they ported Wild Gunman to Virtual Console using the Wii Remote?
Wild Gunman? What the hell is that?
What the hell?
It's the game that was in Back to the Future, but also, it's just one of those NES gallery shooters that use the zapper.
Oh.
Great, I'm so excited.
But they know the Wii remote exists.
Well, at
Yeah.
least they found a way to make the Zapper compatible with modern consoles.
So, speaking of Nintendo, recently I played Super Metroid and finished it for the first time. And to follow that up, I played Symphony of the Night, and I haven't quite finished it for the first time, but I'm almost there. And I just thought I would point out that Super Metroid is a way better game, and I still like Symphony of the Night better.
So why do you like Symphony of the Night, but you're willing to say that Super Metroid is better?
Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night are both games that probably shouldn't be judged too harshly on a first playthrough. But Super Metroid is first and foremost a platformer, and it really builds its exploration around the different platforming skills that Samus gets, such that a player who knows the platforming well will therefore benefit in the exploration. Symphony of the Night doesn't meld its elements as elegantly, and it's not that surprising to hear Igarashi say that he was inspired by Zelda, not Metroid, in making it, because,
That's interesting.
I mean, combat there is a bigger focus than platforming, and the combat almost never plays a role in exploration, except to the extent that the only way to recover health in Symphony of the Night is with save points. So there is a bit of health management, survival style gameplay that does benefit the combat. But I think that that is not as well built on. Like, that's a good foundation for the game, and that's why it works really well in the less RPG Castlevanias, such as Circle of the Moon. But your building skill set doesn't really change the way that combat plays into exploration, in the same way that getting Space Jump significantly alters the architecture of Super Metroid.
So, in Super Metroid, your skill set revolves around platforming, so you get strong exploration, but the combat is trivial. And in Symphony of the Night, you get lots of cool combat stuff, but the exploration suffers.
Well, I don't think it's that the exploration suffers because of the combat or because of the focus on combat. I think it's that as the, I don't want to call them RPG elements, but as the character building elements come into play, the combat doesn't evolve. The most that it does is that in Symphony of the Night you get better weapons, and that makes it maybe easier to survive a little longer and explore a little longer, but it doesn't ever change the way that you're going to explore, because ultimately you're fighting the same enemies in the same rooms at the same distance from save points.
So, is that something addressed in later Castlevanias when you get different weapon types? Is that where you're going?
Well, no. Like I said, I think it works better when they just ignore that element altogether and give you a straightforward combat platforming game that's maybe a bit flatter in gameplay throughout, like Circle of the Moon, but that therefore doesn't have extraneous elements that sort of, give you stuff that comes into play one or two times and then is just dross sitting on top of what is an otherwise effective game.
Yeah, okay.
It's like how in Zelda is better when it has good items, and when the items are weird garbage that are throwaway.
Like dog power? Wait, there are two games with garbage dog powers. Symphony of the Night and Twilight Princess.
There you have it.
Don't you use the wolf for a lot of things, though? Pretty sure you do.
I know, it's...
Oh,
That was below the belt, I will admit.
Oh, I thought you were just gonna say, I just want to shit on Nintendo.
Oh, that too. I mean, anytime I can.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just go for the Dominion Rod?
Yeah, the Dominion Rod's a great example of something that's like...
Like, way underutilized.
Dominion Rod is as significant to Zelda as... I just can't think of anything in Symphony of the Night that matters. Like, double jump is really the only power that has a purpose.
Yeah.
Actually, there is, like, way late, or not way late, but in the second half of the second castle, for the first time I got the gas cloud power, which makes your mist damaging, and that's actually pretty cool.
Huh.
Getting back to Metal Black, before we start going with the specific topics, our overall topic for the night, which I definitely should have mentioned at the beginning, is going to be what are the defining or unique gameplay mechanics of Metal Black. So when I say mechanics, I'm not being too specific here. I just want to differentiate that from Metal Black is unique because of its art style and great soundtrack. I really just mean what gameplay elements, is another word I could use, are integral to Metal Black's identity. And I think that that's a good topic to discuss because we've all already mentioned that we really like this game a lot. And shoot 'em ups are something that are often addressed as being samey or monotonous, or a genre that never really progressed past a certain point. And naturally, I don't agree with that. I don't think anyone here does. I think it has to do, or I think the identity of shoot 'em ups are probably at a lower level than most people care to distinguish.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can hash out here a little bit of what makes Metal Black, and why this is a game worth playing. So first thoughts, if you could summarize your experience or give a initial impression of what struck you about Metal Black the most.
One of the key things that made it interesting to me was how humble its power-up system is, where many shooters of the day prided themselves on having varied power-up systems. Even something as basic as Raiden has multiple shots and multiple missiles. And when you want to go to the crazier end of the spectrum, you have Gradius and all of its options. Taito, the developer behind Metal Black, had Darius, which, like, half of that game's identity is having, by the end of the game, you earn weapons that cover every pixel on the screen. So, compared to that, Metal Black has, like, a really humble weapon system, and you just get the double shot, and once you power it up, it gets a little thicker, and you appreciate every pixel of that thickness, and it gets a lot of mileage out of a really simple and small change. So that is what grabbed me for the most part.
Yeah, I would also back him up on having the double shot as your default weapon, which increases in size as you increase your beam energy. Like, I'm still a virgin when it comes to shmups, but
Right, not anymore.
yeah, not anymore. But from the, let's say, conventions that I am aware of, like, I know that a lot of shmups have power-ups that usually, like, flow around, and you get something like a spread shot, like in Contra, or shot canceling big fireball type of shot or something, I don't know, or laser or whatever. But on this one, it's pretty much just a double shot the whole way through, and you have the option of using your beam energy to either maintain that large shot size or shoot out either a big mega beam or a screen clearing lightning attack.
Yeah, that's another thing that makes Metal Black feel really tight, is that your bombs influence your shot, and your shot influences your bomb. Usually those are just two entirely different systems.
Yeah, that's true. Metal Black, I actually do like how it's kind of a pretty, like, I don't know how to put this, but I don't think it's to its disadvantage that it has a ton of different power-ups. I actually kind of like that it's just used the one gun that you have really well, so I actually kind of like that. It's that straightforward.
Yeah, it's quite pure.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it.
Simple.
So, I don't know, me being a new to the genre, to me, right now, I'm not at a level where I kind of care for having a ton of power-ups, because I think even if there were power-ups, I would kind of just like stick with the one and then just keep that the whole way. Like, Lord knows when I play Contra, I just want the spread shot the whole time. I've not experimented with playing that terrible fire thing. But yeah, so I like the bosses in Metal Black too. I don't know how shmups do bosses, so that one I really have no idea how to comment on. But I actually did enjoy the bosses that were there, provided some of them did kind of trap you in unfortunate ways. But for the most part, I thought the bosses were pretty neat.
Well, we talked a bit about the design of the levels in the last cast, and I'm not going to say let's not bring it up, but I guess the other thing when I say gameplay mechanics, I want to talk more about what the actual systems in the game are versus Metal Black has like one really great boss that makes it transcendent above shitty riding. Yeah, so I think you both sort of got at the same concept that Metal Black is.
I got one. The newalone, of course, the newalone. I don't think I've ever seen a shmup. I don't know many shmups, obviously, but I think that's pretty unique that a shmup has a sort of like coin-like power-up in its level design. I don't know of any where you collect little fragments of collectibles in order to power yourself up, quite like the newalone.
Well, yeah, there you are. You guessed the second topic of the cast. So that's a nice intro because now I can run from both of those into what what I had intended to talk about. Those are the two elements I identified as well. I've played a decent amount of shmups. I enjoy the genre, and I think that it really does come down to Metal Black is very straightforward, and I think it is probably a good intro point for a new player. We talked about the shot a little bit, so let's focus in on that a little bit more. What specifically, just descriptively speaking, what are the control mechanisms of the shot? How does it work?
Well, you can hold the button and you get a rapid fire shot for a little bit, and then it decreases in speed eventually, and to maintain a rapid fire, you press occasionally. I think maybe once per second or something like that. I don't know exactly how often.
I did notice that too, where you don't have to quite mash the button. This might be a stereotype, but I think the further back you go with shmups, the more you actually had to hit the button every single time in order to rapid fire instead of just holding it and it does it automatically.
Yeah.
Well, so 2 notes. Mashing a button is a lot easier on an arcade cabinet, and also the world record of Metal Black uses autofire.
Yeah. Realistically, this is still at the point where every game is making you mash the button to fire. It's not until the mid-90s when Bullet Hell took over that they calmed down on that. So what you described, the system where it rapid fires for a little bit, I guess I think of it as a pulse shot. Is there any significance to that? I mean, this is the only game I've ever played that does that. Do you guys care about that at all?
Weirdly enough, Space Harrier on the PS2 does that.
Yeah, great.
I thought it was neat because, I don't know, there is a certain tactile satisfaction to pressing the shot button, but there is also another satisfaction to having a thumb.
I thought it was neat. In some way, like having well-timed button presses to keep the rapid fire makes it so that you don't quite have to mash as hard, or not mash as hard, or mash as fast for long periods of time. But I like it, but it isn't that big of a deal because you are still going to be pushing the shot button pretty frequently. At least if you want to hold it up for a long time. I mean, there's always the option of just not pressing the button when you don't need to.
So you would say there probably aren't any specific situations in Metal Black where being conscious of that control mechanic is influential in the gameplay at all? Like there's nowhere it helps you or hurts you?
being conscious of the fact that if you would just hold a button, that it does slow down over time. I think that one is important. I do think that one is actually important.
Well, that's general knowledge. Just knowing how to play the game that pressing up makes you go up. But I mean, there's no situation.
Oh no!
That
I just thought it was different because isn't most games you just hold the button and it auto fires? I don't know any other ones where it auto fires and then it just slows down.
I'm sorry. What I meant was, you're right. It is something that you need to know differently about Metal Black. My question was, beyond that, are there times in Metal Black that challenge that assumption or that make you reevaluate the way you're using that shot? Like, is there a time where you need to do it differently?
Not really. I don't see any moments in the game where it's like shooting slower somehow becomes more advantageous. I think this is also something else with older shmups is that they have like a shot limit. Like you can only have like 3 bullets on the screen or something. I'm pretty sure like NES shmups might have been limited by things like that, like probably Life Force or something.
Yeah, that's pretty common, especially in console games.
Yeah, but this game doesn't have that issue, so shooting fast and almost shooting nonstop is pretty good.
So it's a static gameplay element.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it's always a bad thing to shoot slowly. You never have a reason to shoot occasionally.
Yeah, I think it's a little weird, but I don't think there's much to make of it.
Yeah, it's kind of just there.
I think it's interesting that it in some way tries to challenge the control assumption of a shmup, which is a really simple, straightforward, like I said, up, down, left, right type of game, but I don't think it actually manages to do anything with that. So, moving beyond the control itself, we mentioned that the shot is just fire straight forward. So, are there any interesting interactions that the shot has, elements that it interacts with differently, or reliable ways that it will always influence the game?
I did write a thread about different things you can play with in Metal Black. Like the disco ball shots, you can repel backwards with your own shots. So there are certain enemies that shoot these spheres at you, and when you shoot them with your own shot, you kind of you apply a reverse momentum to that shot, and you can, in essence, like push it off the screen. Most of the time, all your shot does is damage, and anytime it does damage, whether it kills the enemy or not, that cancels out your shot as well.
Right. And we mentioned in the last podcast too that the fact that it's a double shot, so it covers a little bit of the top and bottom of your ship, depends on what your beam energy is. You can use that to sort of graze or scrape enemies.
Yeah, the hitbox on your shot in and of itself is unique.
Let's come back to that in a second. Let's talk about the interplay first.
Just a couple other notes. There are enemies that reflect your shots, and there are other shots that your shots will collide with. And then if you... there's a couple different ways to interact with bosses shooting beams at you. You can push them back with your regular shot, or get into a beam duel with your beam. And that's about it.
So, those are recurrent gameplay elements that show up in every level, I think it's safe to say, pretty frequently, as a matter of fact. Maybe frequently is a bit of an exaggeration, but you're never too far away from an enemy that's going to have shots that duel with yours or reflect shots. So how does that just straightforward double shot inform that interplay? Like, what about it is dependent on the type of shot that Metal Black has?
None of it is.
Right.
So, you're saying that if you had a spread shot, you think that the reflective enemies would play the exact same?
Maybe not, because my assumption carries that the spread shot would have to be tuned differently, just for the sake of balance. Kind of like how in Contra, some bullets can actually eat other bullets. So, if there was a spread shot, I'm not sure it might have the same properties. as the default double shot kind of does.
If you only had a single shot, the enemy would still reflect your shot. There's nothing about the interplay that you couldn't do with a spread shot.
Right. It's more of a property that lies with the enemy or the shot itself.
My point is more that would there be any point in having reflective enemies in a game with a spread shot? Would that influence your gameplay in the same way that it does in a game with a straightforward shot? Or straightforward is such a terrible word to describe it, and yet straightforward is what it is, literally.
Yeah, it goes straight and forward. Yeah. It would. It just means it has more areas that it can go to reflect your shots at you. So just shooting diagonally upward and the turtles happens to be in that direction, it just reflects it back in the same way. So
My impression is that I mean, I don't want to enter too far into the realm of speculation here, but my impression is that that kind of enemy works so well because of the fact that Metal Black has a shot that you need to aim. So when you're aiming at enemies, the fact that one of them is reflective in groups with other ones is actually significant because you do have a choice to shoot around that enemy. Whereas in a game with a spread shot, your choice is simply shoot or don't shoot. There's not an aspect of aim involved, and that was kind of what I was trying to get at. That I think Metal Black has mechanics that suggest aim. I guess the question is aim relevant?
Yeah, there are a lot of times where you have to prioritize which enemy you'll hit first. The opening of Stage 5 is a particularly memorable example where you get slaloms of enemies appearing at the very top and the very bottom of the screen, and they move so fast and they shoot so fast that there's no way you can kill a majority of them before they get their shots off. So you just have to pick which ones you want to deal with first and then plot your flight path so that you can avoid the rest.
Right.
Whereas if you had a spread shot, you could probably plant yourself in the middle of the screen and take out everything as it comes in.
You couldn't quite because the enemies are aiming at you.
You would just put yourself over their spawn point.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you know what? I think I actually do get what yourself's coming across. I think had there been other power-ups that covered, like, let's just say they cover space differently, that grazing or that scraping technique that we all use probably wouldn't have been as prominent. Like, I wouldn't use it as much if I could just get a spread shot and, shoot above and below me.
Now that you bring up scraping, that's a good direction to go. Are there times when you don't necessarily try to get in front of an enemy, but instead rely on scraping? How do you know when you're going to be able to use that ability?
Yeah, anytime, I know level 4 has those turrets that are uncomfortably close to the ground. So I definitely try to scrape those if I can. Same thing with those sushi enemies that shoot the diagonal torpedoes in Stage 2, because I could get one, or I could go in between them and kill both of them at the same time, and that just clears out a whole row, which makes dodging likely the two that are above it, because they always come in like pairs of 4s, much easier to avoid. So that's an example of when I would prefer scraping instead of just getting right in front of it and shooting it.
There's also in Stage 3, there are the pink guys that come behind you. They're mollusks or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they come from behind, so there's no option.
Yeah, it's a nautilus.
A nautilus, thank you. And so you want to scrape them because once they get to the right of your ship, they start firing at you. Mm-hmm. So in that case, scraping becomes kind of a method to shoot behind your ship. It kind of in a philosophical sense.
The philosophy is shooting things from behind you.
More specifically what's happening there is that you're actually zoning the screen into stuff in front of you and stuff behind you, and that is an example of an enemy that capitalizes on that, and that requires you to do that sort of subconscious calculation of where those zones are. And eliminating the enemy before it gets into the front zone is actually the way to prevent it from firing. So scraping plays on zoning in a unique way because of that.
Yeah.
It's a lot more subtle than a back shot, but I think that's interesting to compare it, in particular because back shot itself is something that's not so common in shoot 'em ups. Well, I might not be right about that.
It's usually not a primary function of your shot.
Yeah, I'm thinking like in my head with a lot of these examples when I'm saying spread shot and back shot, I'm picturing your Danpachi and later bullet hell style games, which are what I'm accustomed to, and those all are based around pretty much just a forward spread, a full screen forward spread.
Yeah, from the Metal Black era, because there's such a diversity of power-ups in every game, it's not rare, the first Gradius has a, well, no, not the first, Life Force has a backward shot, right?
Yeah, it does. And which Star Soldier introduces that?
Is the very first one does.
Okay. Well, does Star Force have it though? I don't think so.
I don't remember, no. Or I've never played it, I'm sorry.
So it's a weird little riff on backshot. Would you say it compares at all to a melee type ability? And I know, Adrian, you're not going to have a point of reference for this, but some shmups have like a sword or something
That sounds awesome.
Character was. Sometimes it's awesome, and sometimes people think it's a little more awesome than it actually is. But the best example is Lords of Thunder, and the reason I compare it to that is just because that encourages you to get close to enemies, which is the same thing that scraping does.
Mm-hmm.
What do you find are the ramifications of needing to get close to enemies or benefiting from getting close to enemies in that way?
I'm kind of not sure how to answer this question. All I know is that the scraping I find really helpful, and in some ways, by playing it just that little bit more risky, you can actually get better rewards out of it.
Yeah, so that was my question. Do you feel it's like risky?
Oh yeah, of course, because the risk is if it even moves a little bit behind where that shot comes from, it's going to hit the back top or the back bottom of your ship, and then you're just done.
Are there enemies or situations that you feel are riskier for using scraping? I know I can name a couple.
Yeah, I've had it happen a couple of times where I think you actually mentioned this too, where in stage round, I don't care what it's called, level 2, those purple sea urchin things. Normally when they go off the left of the screen, they're gone, but occasionally one of them actually comes back in and then hits you in the back.
Right.
So that's actually an area where it can be risky. But otherwise, you do get a lot of control using that scraping technique to deal with the sea urchins, especially if you hang around near the back. Just pay extra attention to the ones that leave the left of the screen, because sometimes they might come back in.
Yeah, and I think in particular, it's not even the fact that they go in and out, but, well, that's part of it. But the fact that they move in a sine wave pattern makes it a little bit harder to predict exactly where they're going to come out or when they might just make it by your attack pattern.
Mm-hmm.
It's just slightly more difficult to read the movement.
Curves are more complicated than straight lines.
Naturally,
yeah.
Golem enemies or stuff that's risky for scraping.
Anyone that shoots a homing shot is pretty risky for scraping. You need to be able to memorize the timing.
Oh, yeah.
The turrets in Stage 3 specifically I had to learn because the end of Stage 3 can get kind of cramped, so any space you can occupy is good space. And there's a turret right at the end of Stage 3 in a spot that I want to occupy, so I have memorized that the gaps in time between his shots are large enough that I can wait for him to shoot, swoop in, and kill him before he has a chance to shoot at me again. So that's a time where I want to be really close to an enemy and be able to take them out quickly, but it requires a nuanced understanding of that enemy, and it's kind of dangerous until you have memorized how they function.
Yeah, so it's not just the exact movement pattern of the enemies that comes into play there, it's the firing patterns as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The homing rockets that the level 1 boss, the level 2 boss, and even that crab in level 1, they can arc in a way that they curve right onto the back top, the blind side of your ship, where it won't be destroyed by your double shot and it will kill you. So homing projectiles that curve like that are also pretty risky to use that.
Yeah, I find usually I always have to back up when something is approaching me because that will ensure that the wide range of my shot gets it.
Right.
Yeah. I think in level 5, those blue enemies that shoot lightning straight up and down, those are also risky to use it because if you aren't close enough and they get off their lightning, you're pretty much screwed. So that's the risk, is that there's specifically an enemy that's meant to hit you from above and below, which is where you're trying to put them in order to get rid of them with the scraping.
I have a tough time reading the timing.
I scrape them if they're moving.
Yeah.
But once they pause, you better get out of there.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Are there any other nuances of the shot that you feel strongly inform the gameplay? I know one of the other little details of the way it works is that the twin shots that fire are actually independent, so technically one can hit something and the other can go around it. I don't know that is something particularly significant in my gameplay. I don't know if you guys feel otherwise, or if there are other facets of the shot that are difficult to handle.
Yeah, that doesn't quite happen. I know for like level, is it 4? Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's level 5. You know where it curves like that? The fact that you can actually still get your shots around those little green bumps.
Right.
Even though one of them might be blocked off, the other one can still get through, and that's one of the advantages of having a double shot. Those little sticky enemies, I think that's another, probably the only one where the fact that it's 2 shots really comes into play for dealing with multiple enemies, because most enemies just aren't that tightly packed that the 2 shots make a significant effect. I was confusing myself because earlier I was thinking like, wait a minute, isn't that what I do with the shoesies? And it's like, no, it's actually taking advantage of the scraping. But that with the little beady things is an example that doesn't actually have to do with the scraping, but the fact that you're firing 2 different bullets, which takes out 2 different targets.
Yeah, I think that you can definitely see it having an effect there. And I think what you were saying before about it sometimes going around bumps, for lack of a better word, in the environment, it just feels a little bit smoother, but I don't think that that's something you really take advantage of per se. It's just nicely executed.
I know because I only have like one example, and that's all the way in level 1.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what you mean. If you mean getting close to the ground and using one shot to hit one of those robots or whatever.
Yeah, one of the red walker bots, not so low that it collides with the building,
right?
But high enough that it'll go over, but still actually hit the red dude. Because the shot itself, like, you know what? I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's like the hitbox is different than the contact that it uses for colliding with the environment. That's why even if you just slightly move above the ground where it doesn't collide with the floor anymore, it's still big enough that it hits an enemy that's underneath that building that you're trying to shoot at.
I think it's probably just that the enemy's hitbox is taller than the buildings.
Oh yeah, that could be true too.
We didn't talk much about power-ups there. We kind of just talked about how the shot itself functions in a general state. We did mention at the beginning that as the player collects power-ups, it gets wider. So let's go further into discussing the power-ups themselves, which are very elegantly titled newalone. The newalone, was something Adrian pointed out at the beginning, are a unusual system in that they are sort of like a fragmented power-up system. Collecting one doesn't necessarily do anything, but collecting a bunch will eventually power you up. So, one of you guys maybe could just describe how newalones spawn and behave.
Deterministic chaos.
Yeah,
Is that the title of your new novel? By Michael Crichton.
Yeah, I did find that they do spawn at fixed points in the stage. Where they spawn relative to the borders of the screen, though, that isn't quite as consistent. The newalone themselves also have a tendency to bounce around things and sort of just curve up and down and around. It's almost, I don't know, like they're orbiting around invisible planets sometimes when I look at them for a long time. But yeah, their movement is pretty erratic and random, so that makes them part of the sometimes the risk in actually going after them.
Yeah, there are a lot of times, like at the beginning of Stage 3, you might need newalone if you used a beam on the boss, but if you go after newalone, you'll have less positioning advantage when you take on the squads of green guys with those really tricky aim shots. Because it forces you into the screen and closer to them where you have less advantage. Right.
Another interesting thing about the newalone is that you can actually fight over them with the boss, because the bosses and the beam duels is another thing that I would say is unique to Metal Black and gives it its identity, because I don't know other shmups that do that. But of course, I'm completely ignorant on shmups, so that's why I didn't mention it earlier. The fact that the boss can actually fight with you over the same power-up, so it can use its own special move against you, that's also something pretty unique. So even if you're at full beam energy, it's like, oh, I don't need any lunar, it's not going to do anything for me as well. No, you are going to want to get it, because if the boss gets any more, especially the Stage 3 boss, you really don't want the Stage 3 boss to get the newalone, otherwise it can make some pretty devious traps with its dung beetle. Shoot, I just realized it shoots lasers. Okay. So after I just had my mind blown by that fact, that's another interesting thing that I like with this game.
What you got up there is that the newalone sort of serves a multitudinous function. It's not solely used as a power-up or the fact that it's not solely a power-up for you, it's also a power-up for bosses, really means that it goes beyond being just a power-up. It takes on characteristic of an enemy element as well.
Well, I would say it's like a dynamic element, like the Koopa shells in Mario.
Okay.
It's its own thing you can have a tug of war over.
So it's a Switzerland, so to speak. So there are times then that you may be deciding to get newalone because you need to power up or because you need to prevent the boss from getting it. Are there times when you have been able to significantly alter either boss patterns or, in any case, level patterns by your approach to newalone? Like, have you actually been able to stop a boss from using their laser? Or are there places where powering up will significantly affect what you're facing in the level?
Absolutely.
There are a couple. I mean, each boss will have its own interesting aspects regarding newalone, but I think maybe the coolest part, or the coolest boss regarding newalone, is the round 2 boss, which he has a certain phase where he chases after newalone, so you can determine his flight path based on what newalone you've collected and what you've left out in the open for him.
Yeah. That boss in particular also spawns an enemy. Unlike that weird snake thing for the level 1 and 3 and even the final boss, it actually can hit you. So I think it's the only boss in the game that actually does that, where its main source of eating newalone is also something that can hurt you.
Yeah, 1, 3, 5 have the background gripper claw that eats stuff, and the round 6 boss won't eat any newalone.
It just has its background pigtail that it shoots the laser from.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's supposed to be. Its tail or its cock?
Um,
That's something that only H.P. Lovecraft could get to the bottom of. That level 2 boss is one where, yeah, collecting newalone is kind of a big deal in that boss. Is there any counterpoint to collecting the newalone? Is there a reason to leave some of it there? Or just in general, not in that boss fight, what kind of stuff motivates you to leave newalone?
Definitely, if they're just, especially like in the later levels when you get to 4 or 5, sometimes you just really need to leave the new alone. Because I'm sorry, I actually just realized the pun I just made. I didn't mean to do that on purpose, but yeah, sometimes you just need to leave it alone because it really more than anything just bait you into getting yourself killed, especially with those red things that spawn that sort of just teleport in the middle of the stage. They don't come off from the screen, so
yeah.
going after new alone in those sections is particularly dangerous. So you kind of just have to back off.
There are also times when I want to preserve a level 3 shot, since it's the most powerful shot. So
Right, that too.
I will go out of my way to avoid new alone, and then I find myself in the inverse situation, where I have to decide if I want to take a more dangerous position, or eat it and level up my shot by collecting new alone.
So that is something I experienced as well, despite not knowing the level 3 rule. Just because there were times when I wanted to save up newalone for the boss fight or for a particularly difficult spot, because as I'm not sure we mentioned yet, when you use your bomb, that causes you to return to power level 1, and the newalone will power that up as well. So, because the newalone never leaves the screen once it spawns unless someone collects it, there are times, like level 2 is a pretty standard one where I just don't touch the newalone so that as soon as I finish using a bomb, I'll be able to collect all that saved up newalone and use the second bomb right away.
Yeah, I tried to play that way, but that's just too much for me to pay attention to.
Well, I don't think it's really any different from saving it so that you can maintain power level 3, but it is...
Oh, I meant in Stage 2 in particular.
Oh, okay. Is the kind of thing that I ended up dropping until I got to the point where I could play a stage flawlessly, because the newalone is significantly more erratic than the enemy patterns, and so you're really adding in a random element when you start dodging newalone on top of dodging enemies.
Yeah, I'm sure new alone has some behavior to it, but in all of my time with it, I had never figured a good way to predict where it's going to be.
Yeah. It's interesting that I once compared the new alone to like water molecules because they can sometimes actually like cluster together and you don't see them break apart.
I couldn't tell if it was like there was some kind of adhesion behavior going on there, or sorry, that's cohesion, not adhesion. I couldn't tell if there was some kind of cohesion behavior going on there, or if the movement pattern eventually narrows down to the same thing, such that they're all just following each other, basically in a really small area. Like if the deviations of movement are decreasing over time, such that it will eventually stay towards the middle of the screen, then if they all decrease at the same rate, then their movement might eventually look exactly the same.
Maybe. I'd have to do a lot of testing to see.
It's definitely not worth testing.
Oh, yeah.
We'll open up the code.
It's, yeah, not worth breaking open the code either. So newalone's a dynamically allied element, and it is sort of a random element as well. Are there any other elements in Metal Black that provide the same role?
The mines in Stage 2, because when they reappear in stages 4 and stages 4 and 6, you can read them because they'll come from certain gaps in the landscape. But in Stage 2, you're just out in space, and it feels like mines spawn wherever they feel like. The pink star things.
Right.
Yeah, I call them sea urchins. Space urchins.
I think that a knock-on effect of the newalone arbitrary behaviors that the boss of stage 2 seems to move arbitrarily, but you can identify that based on the newalone.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned shells in Super Mario. Are there other elements outside of Metal Black that come to mind in comparing newalone, behaviorally and functionally?
If you want to get to... Can I get, like, super abstract?
Yeah, definitely.
So Burning Rangers,
No, don't. No, I take it back.
Super Mario is really the only one that comes to mind immediately because dynamic elements are kind of rare in games.
What specifically do you mean by dynamic?
It's elements that interact with, like, a whole lot of other stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess, actually, you might find them in open world games a lot.
You mean like a dog that'll attack? Oh, you mean like... Now, here's a great example of like Cyber Demon fighting Spider Mastermind.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's always my favorite thing in the world.
What are you talking about? What is that?
That's Doom
Is that
infighting.
In Doom, enemies of different types will fight each other.
Oh,
You have to trick them to shoot each other, right?
I think that sometimes it's set up intentionally just to show you that it can happen. But yeah, it's not something that spontaneously develops, or something that's ever at all beneficial to gameplay.
right. And backtracking a little bit to the earlier, I guess I one thing I can kind of get where you're coming from, Greg, is that I don't find many analogs to a Koopa shell. Like even as far as platformers go, the Koopa shell is pretty damn unique. Like, how many Koopa-like enemies are there in Donkey Kong? Well, actually, I don't know any in Donkey Kong Country. I don't think there are any.
No.
Like, the concept of an enemy that retracts into a shell and then you can kick it around and pick it up and...
Even like the barrel tossing enemy, he spawns his own barrels and you can't pick them up.
Yeah, they're a different type.
Yeah. I mean, man. Wow, yeah. I'm having a hard time thinking of analogs to a Koopa shell of Mario.
It's something you would probably expect more in multiplayer type games.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sure Power Stone has that kind of thing.
Yeah, when there's like symmetry of gameplay, I guess. I mean, I could randomly pick some element of Super Smash Brothers, but I don't feel like it.
Well, there is an actual Koopa shell in Super Smash Brothers. So,
would you say that newalone is the center of symmetry, the center for symmetry of gameplay between you and a Metal Black boss? That you're both going after the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very effective description of it, and I think that that is much more interesting than beam dueling, because newalone has, again, as I said, more knock-on effects than beam dueling, which is sort of a one-and-done event.
Yeah, and not only that, but I'm not sure if you guys may agree with me at this, but sometimes I found it just more advantage to just use the beam after they use theirs, because then you just get the full damage instead of it, kind of stuck colliding with their beam, sometimes doing nothing, unless you can manage to get that black ball thing to actually hit them, and then it just like does an insane amount.
So I explained to you that you could aim that, right? The black ball.
You told me you could mash to push it.
Okay, so it will go directly out from where you are from the center. So like it pushes. It's sort of like your ship is pushing it away from you. So if you do a beam duel with the boss while you're straight across from the boss, but then you move down a bunch while you're beam dueling, then it will push the ball upwards when it fires because you've moved down.
Okay.
So you need to stay straight across from the boss.
Right. That part I figured. The part that I didn't know was that you taught me was actually pushing the button faster.
Right.
Does push it more than if you were to just hold it.
Yeah. I ended up using the beam duels just because I was playing the broken version of the game where you can't hold the beam button.
In general, I find that beam duels are more they're useful for defense, but in terms of offense, there's more effective stuff you can do.
Yeah, I think probably the last boss where using the beam, even if it's at low power, to sort of just to wear out its beam because of the way it moves its beam across like the whole screen and even moves it left and right in a wave pattern.
Yeah, in the 1cc video, there's a moment where I have to waste a level 3 beam to block the round 6 boss beam.
Right. I think that boss, yeah, so that boss in particular, using the beam as a way of not engaging in the beam duel, but just so it doesn't kill you, just to block it, to shield yourself. You see it with that boss. That's an effective strategy.
Okay. Any further comments on newalone?
It's cool. I like it. I would not mind seeing another shmup do it again.
It feels a little weird that there's only one non-boss enemy that interacts with newalone, but that one non-boss enemy is also a huge hassle, so maybe I should be careful what I'm asking for.
Yeah, I think that there's enough going on already in the levels, and there's like the randomness of newalone, and like I said, the fact that you're not always collecting it. Sometimes you're gonna leave it. Ends up adding so much dynamism to the gameplay itself that I think having a lot of enemies that interact with it might be going overboard and would potentially, I could see an interesting game built around that, but I don't think it's in Metal Black's wheelhouse.
It would be too much like Boogie Wings.
Well, no, I'm not even saying that. I mean, that's what would happen if you added it to Metal Black. I think you could make it interesting if you slowed the pace of the game down some and had more mini-boss type enemies or more focal enemies. You could make an interesting newalone game. A different interesting newalone game.
Right, like that yellow thing in Stage 3 or the fish in Stage 2 that they both take quite a while to die, and for a short time they're actually like the only thing that you might be fighting on the screen because they're much tougher than other enemies that typically will die in one or two shots. I guess those kind. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas.
Yeah, I mean, those are mini-bosses, so it makes sense.
Sort of. They're enemies that are not necessarily attached to one point in the level. So I think that's the kind of stuff. I think newalone is the kind of thing that it's a static element in that it's not affected by the progression of the level or other elements going on in and of itself. The way you interact with it is. And so that's why I kind of think it would be going too far to have other stuff interacting with it.
Yeah.
Like, it is your counterpoint. It doesn't need counterpoints.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that about does it for what I wanted to talk about. There is one more slightly strange aspect of Metal Black, and that would be the bonus stages.
Oh, right.
How did you guys feel about the bonus stages? And I don't want a serious analysis of this because I don't care.
Okay. Well, I got used to the bonus stages fairly quickly, so to me, they're kind of necessary for me to get an extra life by the middle of, or even the beginning of Stage 2, because I can pretty much perfect it every time.
I'm sure there's some way to figure out how to do it, but I don't care. I mean, I probably should care because, more extends are always good. But I get by well enough on just casually moving the cursor around.
Yeah.
They look cool, except for when they take like 30 seconds for a missile to land.
God, yeah.
Alright, describe the missiles in one word. Give one adjective for the missiles.
Meandering.
Adrian?
That was a pretty good word. I'm having a hard time trying to top it.
Loopy.
Well,
Painful.
I just want to say they have bad aim.
Inaccurate.
Like holy hell, yeah, there we go. Inaccurate.
But they always land. How could you possibly call them inaccurate?
They take so many passes.
Yeah.
So
hang on. What should I call that?
Ponderous.
Circuitous. They take a long time to get. They can take a long time to get where they need to go. They're fickle. There we go. They're fickle. They're fickle little.
Alright, that's good enough. Wrapping up here, in one sentence, tell me why I should play Metal Black.
We talked about how the power-ups were cool and how New Alone is cool, but aside from that, what really got me to stick with it for the 27 plus hours it took me to get a 1cc is how thorough the aesthetic elements are, and that as I was getting deeper and deeper into the gameplay complexities, and admittedly the trial and error memorization, I would always have a reason to play stage 1 because considering the music and the graphics was always stimulating in and of itself.
It sure is a pretty game. Oh, did anyone know? Yeah, you all probably noticed, but that there's a story kind of going on with the levels.
And that's part of what makes.
That's a classic element.
That's how it holds up over those 27 hours.
Story and gameplay.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why Sonic is better than Sonic 1. Sonic 2. Sonic 1 is better than Sonic 2.
Yeah.
Adrian, what's your one sentence? Make it a shorter one than Golem's, though, because this is like 3 paragraphs.
Yeah, as a newbie, it's not a hard game to get into. It was really fun. The New Alone itself, really interesting, and it's just a good game.
Okay.
That wasn't one sentence, but that was as short as I could make it.
Well, it was maybe meandering.
Yeah, without covering everything we talked about the past 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think my one sentence, it's definitely been more than 40 minutes. My one sentence is probably just go back and listen to this podcast, and if you're not convinced, then you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, lots of interesting enemies, lots of interesting level design. That pretty much carries the whole game because it's not relying on look at how many weapons we have to make it fun.
I do think it would be off-putting to the general player, the kind of tricks that it pulls on you sometimes.
Maybe. There are some parts where it gets holy fuck hard, and maybe in ways that sometimes in not so good ways, but I don't know. The thing is, I played it to the point where it almost doesn't even bother me anymore. But
yeah, if you're comfortable with memorizing, then Metal Black is great.
I guess I wonder whether the so-called common player you invoke is someone who's going to distinguish between what the slight memorization challenge in Metal Black is versus just your general manic shooter.
Oh, I've heard, a significant portion of the System 11 and shmup community take a disliking to Metal Black. It has its fans. I'm not saying everybody hates it, but...
Yeah, but that's not a person that you need to convince to play Metal Black. That's someone who's playing Metal Black because they've played literally every other shooter in the world, and they know exactly what they're looking for.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that the little inadequacies of Metal Black are something that would stand out against, R-Type or something. So, I think I did all the wrap-up stuff. Any final thoughts from anyone here?
I'm really glad I learned this game, and I want to keep playing it.
I'm glad this is one of the first shmups. Okay, it's actually not the first shmup, but
oh my god!
What?
So much better than Parodius. I cannot tell you how much passion I have for hating Gradius.
Jesus.
Wait, Adrian, have you played Parodius?
No.
Oh, okay, you were just making comment about Commune history.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Really sucks.
jeez. As I am beginning to deep into the genre that is the shmup, this was a great game to get that started with.
Alright. I think that's it. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And have a good night.
All music on this podcast was from Metal Black. If you have any comments or questions, please email vgcommune@gmail.com.
I haven't played Symphony of the Night, so I can't back you up on anything or useless abilities or whatever. I just have one question. The sub-weapons from the original Castlevanias, did those stay in Symphony of the Night? I mean,
Yeah, Symphony of the Night has them pretty much identically to the original Castlevanias, and
okay.
I mean, we're getting into edit out territory, but Symphony of the Night also has about 8 other systems of like different attacks, like as fighting game style inputs, and it has familiars that level up, and as I said, it has different weapons you can equip, and some of them even have unique inputs.
It's worth noting that the cross sub-weapon, not the boomerang, but the cross, is like game-breaking.
Wait, is there a regular cross though? Oh, yeah.
It's like the screen bomb.
Right, that one.
And it does like so much damage to bosses, it's crazy.
Yeah, I end up just using the axe. But actually, it's funny you mentioned that, Adrian, because that gets really annoying sometimes if you accidentally pick up a sub-weapon and then, can't get the one you just wanted to have back because it's somewhere halfway across the castle. Like, I always just want to have axe, and once in a while, yeah.
I mean, that's the game that introduces the solution to that problem.
Yeah, except that it drops off the screen half the time.
Oh.
And it's not the one that introduces it. That's either Dracula X or Rondo of Blood has that.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Okay.
Yeah, so the sub-weapons actually stay in the entire series for the most part. I guess the Soma games don't have them, but they're the focus of Portrait of Ruin.
The Soma games have the enemy summons anyway.
Well, yeah, they don't have the traditional sub-weapons. All of the games have some system of alternate weaponry that is also independent from your progression of quote-unquote adventure abilities. If you want to play one of those, Adrian, I recommend either Circle of the Moon or Portrait of Ruin. Those are the best two.
Okay.
Other people swear by Dawn of Sorrow. That's not my favorite.
Circle of the Moon comes with Bowser's recommendation for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I know he's a big influence.
Alright. Well, yeah, like I said, let's edit most of that out, because that's totally
Or tack it onto the end.
pointless. Yeah, it is getting close to Halloween, which is, in fact, why I was playing, or why I wanted to play a Castlevania game, because I always feel like it around Halloween.
You're crazy if you think this is coming out in time for Halloween. We'll have Realms of the Haunting out in time for Halloween.
Wow, really? We're that far behind? You spent way too much time playing Metal Black.